A lot of times it's not happening fast enough for people. They're comparing themselves to the people around them. So it's just about focusing on yourself for a minute. Thinking like, where do my strengths lie? How can I turn this into more and help me eliminate some additional barriers?
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Gentle Art of Crushing It. My name is Nathan with Undor Properties, and today I'm super excited to be here with Pete Costanzo, who's calling in from, hopefully I pronounced that right, but Pete, you're calling in from Cleveland. How you doing, Pete? Welcome.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. And yeah, you nailed the last name. It's like only like 0.5% of people that I've engaged with get it right. They think I'm related to George Costanza from Seinfeld, so. But it's not
That'd
that.
be nice.
Yeah, halfway famous.
Halfway famous. Maybe you're completely famous. We'll see. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So why don't we kick this off, Pete? Tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your background, what you do in life, where you're at, and then we'll jump into, success and success mindset.
Yeah, wow. Well, there's a lot to cover there. A Cleveland boy, diehard Browns fan. I've been in Cleveland my whole life. Have a background in the defense industry before switching over into real estate, and now mostly my time is spent in the real estate space and being a father. Those are like the two big things that consume a majority of my time, and both of them are excellent, right? Especially the dad part.
Hopefully not in that order, right? I hope the father piece comes first and then the real estate.
Always. Everybody at Doorward is very understanding about that, and they live vicariously through my fatherly experiences.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can relate as a father myself, right? And I always catch myself when I talk about all the things I do, and I don't list the wife and the kids first, and then everything else.
Right.
Awesome. Hey, Pete, what's your favorite success story that you like to share with people about your life and your background?
That's a good question, and maybe it's not even humble to say that I'm humble, but I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. But I think, like, quickly racking my brain, the one that means a lot to me is the fact that I had spent like a decade in the defense industry, and Dan was building Doorward, more or less with me, kind of engaged like in little bits, just trying to help a friend. And then one day I got a postcard from him in the mail asking me to come on full time in a pretty critical role, right? And I mean, that's a lot to ask. But in the way of success, like he felt that he trusted me enough, and that I had enough professional experience to bring a lot of value into the building of Doorward. So that was huge for me. That felt like a huge success, to have a longtime friend of like 15 years reach out to you and put that large responsibility on your shoulders. That's, I mean, for me, like, that's a pretty defining moment, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure we kind of spend some time towards the end here, or as part of this conversation, to talk about Doorward. But before we get there later in the show here, just what's the short version of what Doorward is for those who might not know, just so that when we talk about it until we get to the longer section, right, about Doorward, people actually know what we're talking about.
Sure. Quickly, Doorward is a protected social network specifically designed for real estate. That's the shorthand version of it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Pete. Again, like I mentioned, we'll talk about Doorward in a bit. Before we get into that, right? I'm curious what you think Dan saw in you, like to kind of reach out to you like this for such a critical role. And that role, right, if I'm not mistaken, is COO of Doorward.
That's right.
Awesome. And why do you think he reached out to you?
Well, he knew me for a long time, and so he understood my personality really well. He knew what my work ethic was. there's a lot of things that he was able to see through like the course of our friendship. I mean, we played rugby together for the better part of a decade, and so not an easy sport to undertake, and just like watching, my trajectory through that and putting myself through some torturous moments, that coupled with, we took a lot of engineering coursework together where the going got really tough, and you got to double down to survive the semester. So firsthand, he saw a lot of like how I would deal with those challenges and that adversity, and that probably increased his confidence level to say, okay, I can task Pete with this, and like he's going to be able to get it done. So I hate to put words in his mouth, and he's the only one that knows what he saw, but I'm thinking maybe something along those lines.
That's awesome. And well, first of all, thank you for kind of sharing this, success story, or at least in your mind, right? What you've considered a great success here, joining this awesome company, Doorward, as a very critical role. I'm curious if for you over time, from maybe when playing rugby or your job in the defense space to now your current role at Doorward to maybe being a father, right? Maybe all of the above. I'm not sure, but how the definition of success has changed for you over time. If success still means the same thing for you today than it did a few years ago, or if that's changed, and if so, how?
That is funny because I have recently been thinking about that a lot. I'm at a very, the last period of my life is very dynamic, going from being, single to married with kids. Like there's a lot of change that happens there, and your wants and your needs change with that. And so I was just thinking about like how much that has changed, and like the things that I wanted when I was 22, trying to get out of college and like really make an impact in the workforce, are so vastly different now, especially with fatherhood entering the mix. It's like it does a 180, and this, like the stuff that I wanted at 22 is at the bottom of the list now, because I derive more joy and I feel more success and motivation from, seeing my son like figure out the littlest thing, right? To somebody that's an adult is like, okay, they might look at it and say whatever, but you're like, oh man, he's growing, he's learning. And so for me, it's a huge motivator. To be involved in that process with him is wild.
Yeah. And I'm curious because, I mean, I couldn't relate more about like the parenthood and fatherhood piece that you mentioned here, right? As you and I talked about before we hit record here, I got two little ones of my own. And sometimes I find myself struggling to, keep the family, wife and kids a priority and deal with all the other things that we do in life. And I've been through, startups myself. I'm curious what your secret sauce is for kind of managing being a full-time parent, full-time husband, and, playing this very critical role, as CEO of Doorward.
The secret sauce. I don't know if it's truly a secret, but one of the things that I find most helpful, and this is like I'm constantly trying to improve upon this, but it's the harmonization it's not really a balance. I try to achieve harmony with like my real life and my work life. Some of the, and to get specifics, some of the things that I'll do, if I have low-hanging fruit tasks that I need to do for work, maybe it's not a meeting, maybe it's like an email, like I'm doing inbox cleanup and doing some follow-ups. I'll, sit with my son and read through the emails with him and then type out some replies, just so that like he can be a part of it, he can be included, he's there with me. It's not like, oh, go over here and play. And I understand, like, for a lot of people that might be hard to do, but if you can find those little things where you can include them and they can grow with you, they'll be able to better understand as they grow up, with the kids. They'll be able to better understand what you do for work, and then you guys can have some higher level conversations about it. It's a good learning opportunity for them as well. And the same thing, like I love to use my wife as a sounding board because she just thinks differently than I do, and she has great ideas. And so it's about the inclusiveness and it makes it feel like it's not work when like it's a family affair. And there's ways to do it where it doesn't have to overwhelm the family life. But that's where I am constantly looking to improve upon that. Like, it shouldn't be all of our conversations, but when there's opportunities for it, like, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. I love that take, I guess, or that point of view and the comment you made about harmony and not necessarily looking to, I can't remember the words you were using, but it's not necessarily like trade-offs or trying to um, balance one over the other, but it's like to harmonize both. So that's pretty awesome. And just if I shift gears here a little bit, Pete, is there like an incredibly difficult like experience or story that you've been through in life that you don't mind sharing, with our audience? And from there, I'm particularly curious to hear about kind of what mindset you had and how you got out of that experience and what you learned from it.
I going back to the startup journey to talk a little bit more about that. It was a weird experience, but it was definitely where it was like the challenges just converged, because at the time that I started full time at Doorward, it was almost exactly lined up with the time when I started my fatherhood, the first time, like not on kid number one, not like later on. And so going from like corporate America, and being part of a larger organization that has some more defined structure and policies and procedures, and then taking that knowledge, trying to translate it into the startup space and figure out how to continue to be a better husband and figure out how to be a good father. Wow, like it was super overwhelming in the beginning, like super overwhelming. A lot of anxiety, a lot of frustration. You're just trying to figure out like where to put your foot next. While blindfolded, it felt like a lot of challenges, so many new things. Like, my head was spinning.
And how'd you deal with it, just like from a mindset perspective?
From the mindset perspective, I mean, it was more along the lines of, I guess, and it sounds bad to say, but you kind of resort to like more or less of a survival mode, for yourself, so that like everybody that you're trying to help can like get the best out of you. And I just the discipline and resilience, like, huge, especially the discipline, right? The discipline being, when you don't want to do something, but you can execute on doing that thing anyways. Like, it got me really far, because there was a lot of things that I'm like, man, I don't really have like the motivation to do this. But you're like, you fall back onto your discipline and the structure and the schedule. So that was big for me. And it's just keeping the family and the business in mind. Like, everything that I'm doing is going to benefit a group of people larger than just myself. Like, I have to keep that in the front part of my brain, because that helps me to like keep pushing forward, even if it's like you're running on fumes. Your son doesn't know that. You probably don't want to tell your wife that.
Doesn't care.
Right. So just keeping others in the front of your mind, like, okay, like the work that I'm going to do, even if it's gritty and I don't want to do it, it's going to benefit somebody else.
Yeah, awesome. And if you could go back in time to when you're playing rugby, younger, I don't know, what would you do differently if you could, to kind of fast track your success or being where you are today, right? I guess, would you do anything differently? What would that be?
That's an excellent and very philosophical question. I've come to learn, though, that I wouldn't have done anything differently, and I wouldn't have tried to fast track it, because hindsight being 2020, like, the journey has just been immaculate, and I wouldn't have gone through the growth that I needed to go through with these different challenges at different points in time if I would have like taken that shortcut or fast tracked it or and hopped in the time machine and done something different. So I don't know that I really would have changed like a big thing. I mean, there would have been like little moments where it would have been like, okay, I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on this, or like not worried about this thing so much because it like ended up being okay. I guess that would be the big thing, is like I would just tell myself like, hey, like just keep going, but don't be such a worry wart. Like it's all gonna work out.
Yeah, and yeah, no, that's interesting, and like you put it, right, the journey being so immaculate, right? I mean, just I think having that I guess awareness maybe, or that, ability to kind of step back and realize that is, in my mind at least, so important, right? It's not necessarily about the destination, right? But it's, maybe even more so about the journey, and being able to recognize and realize that is pretty strong in my opinion.
I agree. I agree totally. And it's hard to do that when you're in the moment. And I think you get better at being able to step back just with time, right? The wisdom and experience that comes with that. And if it was about the destination, it's just like, well, we should just hop in the casket now, right? I mean, we got to go through life.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that destination just yet, but yeah, that's a good way to put it. What would you say your secret weapon is? I mean, in the sense that, I'm sure you've encountered, or sorry, let me step back. I mean, you've done a lot of things. You've changed, from, having a full-time job, corporate America, probably a relatively secure position, working on important things, right, for the nation and whatnot, to then, while you were becoming a father, sounds like, relatively new, spouse and husband, you got on this, crazy startup journey, right, where you frankly can't predict, what the outcome's going to be. All of this is happening at the same time, and you've got to be pretty strong to be able to go through that, I would imagine, right? And in this journey of yours, right, I imagine you must encounter and meet people that are maybe of the, I don't know, glass half empty type, right? Where it's like, I can't do what you do, Pete, because I was dealt this, hand of cards, or things aren't, or things are stacked against me, right? It won't work for me, but good for you, Pete, right? When you encounter, situations or people like this, what's your secret weapon, right? What do you tell people to kind of help them get out of this funk maybe, and go from glass half empty to glass half full?
It's interesting because it's sometimes very simple. It's about doing a roll call. It's about doing a head count, and perspective is everything. So when they get into this, and it's a vortex, it will suck you down, that negative mindset, that negative processing mindset, because you're doing a roll call on all the things that maybe you want to do, but something is preventing you from doing that thing. And so you have to just flip the hourglass over and think about, okay, well, what are all the things that I have going for me? It's really, really hard to do, but you have to be able to protect some time and do that exercise. Doing it in your head always doesn't always work, because you can get lost in your thoughts, but like writing these things down on paper can be huge. And it's hard because yeah, you want to have legitimate reasons as to why you can't move your life forward in the way that you want. And I think a lot of times it comes down to the time factor. It's not happening fast enough for people, and they're comparing themselves to the people around them because they're on LinkedIn or they're on other social media sites, and they're seeing, people advance their careers. And it's hard to do, right? Because there's a lot of distractions. So it's just about focusing on yourself for a minute. And it's not in a selfish way, but thinking like, where do my strengths lie? What do I have going for me? How can I turn this into more and help me eliminate some additional barriers? I mean, it sounds so simple, but it's not. It's a lot easier said than done. But you have to be willing to protect the time and do the work necessary to think about these things. Because everybody has challenges. Everybody. I mean, we just talked about the difference in, I have my family here in like a 2-mile radius to help with like, last minute, urgent, or planned childcare needs, and you were just telling me like, you know, your family's in another country, and I'm just like, well, they're they're probably not babysitting on a weekly basis.
No, they're not.
So there's all kinds of challenges for everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just how you deal with them, how you look at them, and navigate them is the game changer.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that I feel is, often underrated in today's kind of microwave society, which is just, taking the time to think, right? To, look at your situation, think about your
Mm-hmm.
situation, and just, process things. Because I feel like way too often, people tend to just, operate under the assumption that things happen, work gets done, I will automatically understand how this thing works or what I must do to complete this task or whatever, when oftentimes you just need to stop, pause, and think, right? Just take some time to think.
Yeah, yeah. We live in a world where, like you said, people don't do that very often. And this is a skill I think that I honed when I was in my previous role, because there was a lot of high pressure and like high speed moments where, you know, there were, soldiers downrange, lives were at stake. We had to get helmets into another country, and you have to make like critical decisions with limited information. And sometimes things would go wrong, and they wouldn't be your fault, but you have to think about, okay, was I able to control that? Was it preventable? Could I have done something differently? But yeah, being able to like step back, even if it's just a small moment, and assess things, and their impact and their consequences is huge. But we just live run and gun now in 2023.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And so as we talked about, Pete, right? A lot of our audience here, sorry, is into real estate, right? And you are too, obviously, through Doorward. Why don't we shift gears a little bit here and talk about Doorward? Can you tell us a bit more? What is Doorward? What does it do? Who should use it? Who shouldn't use it? I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. So Doorward is a protected social network that's designed specifically for real estate. One of the big things that we've seen, especially over the last year for sure, is that the social networks, the social media platforms out there, they're not tailored to serve real estate. You can use them to network and transact with people in some capacity, but they're not really designed for it, and you have to navigate a lot of spam and potential scams. And so what we're trying to do is take the best productivity that's happening on those platforms and move it into a space that's designed for real estate. And when I say that, I mean the tools and the functionality and the features of this platform have real estate transactions in mind. Our platform really is helpful to beginners. And when we say beginners, we mean people that are already started and trying to scale, or the people that have been doing the research and getting educated on how they can jump into the real estate game, but they need to build their network, find a mentor. So we're really geared towards that demographic, that audience. We want to help those people find their version of the American dream.
And maybe this is the obvious question, right? And I'm not, meaning to stir anything here with this question, but isn't that what BiggerPockets is?
Yeah. So BiggerPockets, definitely, and let's not stir anything up or get ourselves canceled here, because BiggerPockets does add a lot of value to the real estate community. And they do it in more of a forum style capacity, and you could definitely go in there and search for information and get connected to people for sure. I guess the big difference for us is that we want to not do it in a forum style capacity, but a more familiar social media, multimedia type of way, where it's maybe a little bit more bingeable and in the way of like consuming the content, right? Because we don't want people to keep doom scrolling. We want them to focus on micro learning. And so that's the design kind of the feed, is like they should be able to scroll through and find topics and discussions and articles and podcasts that will benefit them in their real estate education. BiggerPockets doesn't truly have their tools integrated into their platform, and so we're trying to take those basic real estate investment tools and keep them right there so that you don't have to leave the social networking piece. You can get connected to somebody that's ready to transact, and then you can transact with them right there in the platform.
Yeah, and obviously I was trying to tease a bit here with that question, right? But I use both platforms, so I know I know both of them, right? I'm in BiggerPockets and I use Doorward as well, and I mean I think they're complementary, I guess, in certain aspects, but one of the things that I find particularly hard to navigate, let's say, especially if you're a beginner, so when you go into BiggerPockets, it's hard to get like to trust that you are getting the right information from the right person. So for example, you go in and you ask your question as a newbie or whatever, and you post something in there, it's 2 million users or whatever it is on their platform, right? So you're quick to get, dozens, if not more, answers to your question. And just like everything in real estate, when you get started, everything's confusing and complicated, but you get 20 different versions of the answer and you just don't know what to do with it. Whereas in Doorward, you can go to the expert or the expert of a particular niche and ask the same question or look for the same kind of type of information in a more maybe reliable manner, right? And I'm not saying this to say that answers that you get on BiggerPockets are not accurate. It's just you don't know how to navigate them when you don't really know what you're doing in the beginning. And I think that's what Doorward does much better, in my opinion. And I'm probably going to get canceled now for saying all this about BiggerPockets, but it is what it is.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's what we're working to do, and we want to help serve the beginner, and we're trying to be innovative in the ways that we do that, and we're trying to listen to the experiences that people have had on BiggerPockets, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, because they're using all these tools, like you said, to try to learn, but it's an ocean of information, and you don't know who's being sarcastic or who's trying to scam you or lead you astray. It gives you a really sick feeling in your stomach because you want to ask for help, but then it kind of takes the wind out of your sails because you're like, I don't even know. I got 5 different answers. I still don't know what to do. So, Doorward wants to focus on helping facilitate that matchmaking process. If you're a beginner, you want to find somebody that you can trust and that can help mentor you, maybe take you through your first deal, give you some advice on how to scale. That stuff can be important. And real estate is the most referral-based industry on the planet. It's got to be. Everybody's got a guy, right? So we want to leverage that because that trust is huge. Trust means speed in real estate.
Yep, 100%. So why don't we just jump right into it? Where can people get their hands on Doorward?
So we have two different ways that you can do that. One of them is, we have a desktop site that they can access through our website, www.doorward.com. Imagine that, right? Otherwise, if they're into the mobile experience, we have the mobile app on Apple, the App Store, and the Google Play Store. So they can download that, and there's a mobile experience as well, which is nice to keep in your pocket. And then we also have our podcast, Doorward Thinking, that supplements the app in the way of, the philosophical approach to, the entrepreneurial spirit and mixing that in with real estate and what that means for people on their individual journeys. So they can check us out on everywhere that podcasts are hosted. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, the list goes on.
Yeah, awesome. And then folks, when those who are interested in getting their hands on Doorward, like I mentioned, Undoor and Undoor Properties, we are on Doorward ourselves. So come find us, come find some extra goodies as well using promo code Undoor. Pete, trying to, be mindful of your time here and bringing this closer to a close here. What is a book recommendation that you would have for our audience? Something that's helped you in your life, helped you find success, that you think is worthwhile reading?
So based on what we talked about, navigating some challenges and changing the mindset, it would have to be Sovereignty, The Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Men by Ryan Michler. Excellent, excellent book.
I have not read that one. I'll have to add it to my list.
It's a very good read. It really gets you to do what we talked about before. Take that time to think and strategize and plan and do a roll call and get that glass half full mindset. It's like magic. It's a must read. It's a must read for people that are going through challenging times in their life. It helped me a lot. I've read it probably like 4 times, so don't be afraid to get into it more than once.
Awesome. And typically we like to ask our guests here on the show for like a tool or an app or a piece of software that they recommend. I mean, we just talked about Doorward, so I would recommend going to doorward.com and checking that out. Is there anything else you want to plug here, or another tool or app that you use or like to use that has helped you in your life?
Well, yeah, hopefully hopefully we keep the Doorward plug. I'm trying to think if there's another one. Oh, another good one. There's an app called Headway. And it's a great one. It's like the shorthand version of books, so you can listen to. It's like I'm not sure how to really describe it in a concise way, but it gives you like a truncated version of books based on topics that you select, and it's an audio version, so you don't have to read the whole thing. But if you like what you hear, which may be like 20 minutes. You can then, download that whole book, or, go on Amazon and get the paper copy. But that one has been a nice way to start the day.
Awesome. Love it. And last question here, Pete, before I let you go, how can our audience, help you and connect with you, if at all?
There's so many ways to make that happen. Let's see, I'm trying to think here. So connecting with me, I'm on all most of the major social media platforms. They can reach out to me. My email is peter@doorward.com if they have specific questions about the platform, or if they just want to set up some time to chat about life's challenges. My inbox is open.
Love it. Pete, well, with that note, thanks for offering people reach out with all their life problems. You're going to get flooded now. But thank you so much for your time today. It was awesome having you here, and everyone go.
Hey, I'll help somebody.
Go get your hands on Doorward. Pete, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds great, Nathan. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.